Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Moviesnips. Today we're going to be talking about the differences between the Nexus-series of replicants manufactured by the Tyrell Corporation and then later by the Wallace Corporation in the Blade Runner universe. This is a topic that hasn't really been covered in detail, and I think it deserves special attention since neither Blade Runner movie goes into the history of how the Nexus line evolved since its inception. The Blade Runner comic books do shed a bit more light on this topic though. Before I begin, please remember to hit that subscribe button and give us a like. Let's begin by discussing the first line of Nexus replicants, the Nexus-1 series. This model was launched in the year 2000, according to the Blade Runner timeline, and was barely recognizable as a humanoid and was largely of robotic construction covered with genetically engineered human skin. It had no personality and lacked even basic human emotions. The Nexus 2 was a little more advanced and featured a programmed personality, but was still largely machine-like. The Nexus 3 was a notable step up from the previous replicant models, and these replicants were able to display basic human emotions. They were still largely incapable of independent thought and could not be reasoned with, but they did have the capacity and collective will to rebel against their human masters. They would give up easily when cornered, however. Rick Decker's initial retirement as a Blade Runner was due to his experience of having killed a Nexus 3 replicant, whose death made him feel sick to his stomach because the Nexus 3 series conveyed the feeling of being too smooth, too human. The Nexus 4 line was further improved from its predecessors. As of July 2009, the Nexus 4 was the most advanced replicant, but concern arose when a pleasure model murdered lab worker Lydia Kine. The Nexus 5 was stronger, more agile, and at least as intelligent as its creators. Notably, the model also harbored an apparent obsession with optimization, seeking to find progress in any situation. However, this model would still give up when cornered and still lacked a highly developed sense of independent thought. The Nexus 6 line was a quantum leap upwards from the previous Nexus models, and it represented a huge breakthrough for the Tyrell Corporation. They were virtually identical to a human being and were marketed as being more human than human. The Nexus 6 had superior strength, agility, a wider temperature range tolerance, and a variable intelligence quotient depending on the model for use in off-world mining colonies. They had a highly developed range of human emotions and independent thought. They were also genetically engineered with a limited lifespan of 4 years. Roy, Leon, Zora, and Pris were all Nexus 6 replicants. Unlike the previous models, Nexus 6 replicants would actually make a coordinated effort to rebel against their human masters, and wouldn't give up when cornered. Because of their physical similarity to humans, this model of replicant could only be detected by irregularities in bodily responses to emotionally charged and sometimes disturbing questions when subjected to a void comp test. I made a separate video on the void comp test, so please be sure to visit my channel and check it out. The Nexus 7 line was a highly advanced experimental replicant of which there were only 2, possibly 3 known individuals. The most notable Nexus 7 replicant was none other than Rachel, Eldon Tyrell's secretary. Isabel Selwyn was another Nexus 7 replicant mentioned in the Blade Runner comic books. A highly debated topic amongst Blade Runner fans is whether Rick Deckard was actually an experimental Nexus 7 replicant himself, unbeknownst to him. There's evidence for and against this argument, but this is another topic for another time. One major difference apparent between the Nexus 7 series and previous models is that Nexus 7s could be implanted with real human memories prior to their inception. While earlier models would be close to their expiration date by the time that they accumulated enough memories to develop feelings and a sense of identity, Nexus 7s could thus be born with a vast wealth of memories that they could pass as human immediately. Rachel was not even aware of the fact that she was a replicant. Whereas the true nature of the Nexus 6 replicants could be determined after 20 or 30 void comp test questions, it took over 100 questions to establish that Rachel was a replicant after being interviewed by Deckard. Nexus 7s also had open-ended lifespans with no fixed termination date. Probably the most significant advantage that the Nexus 7 replicants possessed was their ability to reproduce. a function not even possessed by the newer Nexus 8 and Nexus 9 replicants. This was evidenced by the birth of Deckard and Rachel's child, Stellene. The Nexus 8 series was the final line of replicants manufactured by the Tyrell Corporation. Unlike the previous Nexus 6 models, Nexus 8 series replicants were purpose-built with natural lifespans and were imprinted with ocular implants to better differentiate them from humans. The replicant registration database was created to identify replicants with ease around the year 2020, and the Nexus 8s were used to fight on both sides of the war in off-world battles, such as the conflict on Calantha. The Nexus 8 replicants were also highly intelligent, resourceful, and organized. They played a pivotal role in the growth of the replicant resistance movement and were eventually hunted down by their creators and forced to go into hiding after the EMP blackout event of 2022. Ex-combat medic Sapper Morden and replicant resistance leader Freza Sadegpour were two notable examples of the Nexus 8 line. Shortly after the 2022 blackout, Tyrell Corporation would go out of business, and the continuation of the Nexus line of replicants would be stewarded by the newly established Wallace Corporation. Unlike the former Nexus 6, Nexus 7, and Nexus 8 replicants, which had a propensity to rebel against their human masters, the Nexus 9 line was designed with perfect obedience in mind. They retained the ocular implants of the Nexus 8 line. Unlike the Nexus 8s, they had variable lifespans and could be genetically engineered to live as long as the customer requested. Their absolute obedience was called into question, however, when Replicant K decided to defy his old master's orders. I'd like to thank you for watching my video today. If you think that I missed anything, please feel free to comment down below. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and please check out my channel for more Blade Runner videos.